Hi, everybody. 9.2, multiplying polynomials. So now we're going to multiply a polynomial by a polynomial. So the first thing we're going to do is multiply a monomial by a polynomial. So when we multiply, we're going to use our laws or properties of exponents that we learned in chapter 8. So remember, we multiply the coefficients, we keep the base, and we add the exponents. So when we multiply a binomial by a binomial, remember, that's two terms by two terms, we're going to use what we call the FOIL method. The FOIL method is basically just distributing twice. FOIL stands for first, outer, inner, and last. So the first thing you're going to do is multiply the first terms inside each of the parentheses. The second step will be to multiply the first term of the first parenthesis by the second term in the second parentheses. The inner is multiplying the second term in the first parenthesis by the first term of the second parentheses. And the last, L, stands for multiplying the last terms in each of the parentheses, which you'll see once I do some examples how that is. So let's just do some examples. So the first thing we're going to do is 3x squared multiplied by 2x cubed minus x squared plus 4x minus 3. So I'm going to just write this a little bit better. 3x squared. When you have a monomial multiplied by a polynomial, you're going to take and distribute that. Okay, you're going to distribute it. So you're going to take that 3x squared and you're going to multiply it by 2x cubed. Then minus, take that 3x squared and multiply it by x squared. Then take that 3x cubed and multiply it by 4x. And then lastly, you take that 3x squared, there's a minus sign, so 3x squared times 3. So you're distributing. We all know how to distribute. You take what's on the outside of the parentheses, multiply it by each term that's on the inside of the parentheses. So now what we have to do is simplify this. Now we're using the laws of exponents that we just learned in chapter 8. So 3 times 2, we multiply our coefficients, we keep the base, and we add the exponents. Minus, we multiply the coefficients, 3 times 3 is 9. We keep the base, which is x. We add the exponents, 2 plus 2 is 4. Next term, we multiply the coefficients, 3 times 4 is 12. We keep the base, which is x, and we add the exponents, 2 plus 1 is 3. Next, 3 times 3 is 9, x squared. None of those exponents are the same, so we cannot simplify this any further. That's your answer. because in order to add them or subtract them, they need to have the same base, remember, and the same exponent. Example number 2. You have 2a plus 3 times the quantity a squared plus 3a minus 4. So now you're going to distribute the 2a over each term in that second parentheses, and then you're going to distribute the 3 over each term in the second parentheses. Then you have to add like terms. So let's take the 2a and distribute that first. 2a times a squared. So 2a times a squared plus 2a times 3a. Now 2a, it's a minus sign in front of the 4, so 2a times 4. Then you have to distribute the 3, okay? So now you're going to take and distribute the 3. So 3 times a squared, and this is all plus 3 times 3a and plus 3 times, actually, that would be minus, because there's a minus in front of the 4, minus 3 times 4. Now we're going to simplify. Okay, we're going to do the multiplication. So 2a times a squared, keep the multiply the coefficients, 2 times 1, keep the base, which is a, add the exponents, which would be 3, plus 2 times 3 is 6, keep the base, which is a, add the exponents, 1 plus 1 is 2. Last term, 2a times 4. 2 times 4 is 8, and then there's 1a. Now we're going to simplify the second. So you have 3 times a squared is 3a squared. Plus 3 times 3a is 9a. Minus 3 times 4 is 12. Now I lined it up horizontally. You could have also taken, as you did that multiplication, and lined it up vertically. Put the 3a squared under the 6a squared, the 9a under the 8, and then the 12. So now we're going to add like terms. So we have 2a cubed. Well, there are no other a cubes. So we're going to get 2a cubed. Now we look and we have 1a squared here and 1a squared here. When we add like terms, we get 6 and 3 is 9a squared. Remember, when we add, we keep the variable and the exponent the same. Now we look and we have a negative 8a and a positive 9a. That's going to give me a positive 1a. And then you're left with your constant, which is 12. So minus 12. And there's your answer. Again, like I said, you could have taken that 2a cubed plus 6a squared minus 8a, and when you multiplied the second parentheses, you could have lined it up. So put the 3a squared underneath the 6a squared. Put the 9a under the 8a, and then carry the 12 over here. And see, when you do that, you get the same answer, 2a cubed plus 9a squared plus a minus 12. Okay. So you distribute twice. Okay, you distribute each term in the first parentheses over each term in the second. Multiplying and using your rules or your laws of multiplication. Number 3. Let me just do this. Blue pen's a little bit better. No, I don't want that. Okay. So number 3. We have 3x minus 1 times the quantity of 2x squared plus x minus 2. So we're going to take that 3x and we're going to multiply it by everything. And we're going to take that 1 and multiply it by everything. But look at the 1. The 1 is negative. Okay, the 1 is negative. So if you need to change this to plus negative 1 so that you know that you're multiplying each of those terms by negative 1, then do that. If you realize you're not, then don't worry about it. That if you don't have to change it. So we're going to take that 3x and we're going to multiply it by 2x squared. So 3x times 2x squared. Then you're going to take that 3x and multiply it by x. And this step that I'm doing now, you don't have to do. You can do it, the multiplication, right in your head if you want. I'm just doing it all out for you to see exactly where it comes from. So minus, because there's a minus sign, 3x times 2. Now you're going to distribute that negative 1. Now you're going to distribute that negative 1. So you're going to get plus negative 1 times 2x squared. Negative 1 times x. Take that negative 1, negative 1 times, remember that's a negative 2. Okay. Now we're going to simplify. So we're going to get 3 times 2 is 6. Keep the base, add the exponents. 1 plus 2 is 3. Plus 3, keep the base, add the exponent, you get 2. Minus 3 times 2 is 6. There's only one x, so an x. Plus negative 1 times 2x is negative 2x squared. Okay, again, here's where I might go and line it up. All right, instead of putting the plus there, negative 1 times 2x squared is negative 2x squared. So put it underneath the x squared term. Negative 1 times x is negative 1x. And negative 1 times negative 2 is plus 2. You've got a negative times a negative, remember. So now we're going to add. So we get 6x cubed plus x squared minus 7x plus 2. So it's a lot, but if you take it step by step, put your like terms together, then you'll be able to do it. Okay. The next several equations that are problems that we're going to do are going to be a binomial times a binomial, which is the FOIL method, which is 90% of what you're going to be doing, okay? Because when we learn how to factor, which is in the next couple of sections, the rest of the chapter, okay, when we learn how to factor, they will be factoring, your expressions will be factoring into two binomials. So example 4 is x plus 7, the quantity, I should say, of x plus 7 times the quantity of x plus 5. So here's the FOIL method. But again, remember what I told you. It's basically just distributing twice. So FOIL says to take the first term in the first parentheses, which is this x, and multiply it by the first term in the second parentheses, which is that x. Well, that's distributing. So you get x times x. Then FOIL says outer, first outer. The outermost one here in the first with the outermost term in the second parentheses. Or I wrote it out for you in your notes. The first term in the first parentheses by the second term in the second parentheses. That's your outside, your outer. So here's your outer, here's your first, so first. So then that's going to be x times 5 or 5 times x. Then you have inner. That's your second times your first. The inside terms. That's your inside terms. So plus 7 times x. And then last for L. Last term in the first parentheses, last term in the second parentheses. So 7 times 5. Now if we simplify, we get x squared plus 5x plus 7x plus 35. Now we have to ask if we have any like terms. We do. And most of the time you will. Those two middle terms are going to be like. So our answer is x squared plus 12x plus 35. Number 5. Number 5 is x minus 8 times x minus 9. So again, here we have some negatives, so you have to be careful when you're doing this. So I forgot to put L up here for last. First, outer, inner, last. FOIL. And basically, like I said, it's just distributing. So we distribute that x to the x, and we get x times x. We take the x, we multiply it by -9. We get -9 times x. We take the -8, we multiply it by x. So minus 8, -8 times x. And now we take -8 and we multiply it by -9. So be careful there. -8 times -9. So now if we simplify, we have x squared minus 9x minus 8x, and we have a -8 times a -9, so that's a positive 72. Look here, we have like terms, so our answer is x squared minus 17x plus 72. Number 6. 6 is x plus 5 times the quantity of x minus 3. So again, we're going to distribute twice, FOIL. First is x times x. Outer is x times negative 3. Inner is 5 times x. And last is 5 times negative 3. Be careful of that negative. That minus sign, remember, means that 3 is negative. So we get x squared minus 3x plus 5x minus 15, because a positive 5 times a negative 3 is a negative 15. Now we look for like terms. Careful here because it's a negative 3 and a positive 5, so we subtract, keep the sign of the larger number, which is 2. So x squared plus 2x minus 15. Number 7. Number 7 is x plus 4 times the quantity of 2x minus 1. Again, we're going to distribute or FOIL x times 2x first. Outer is over there. So plus x times, x times negative 1. Then inner is 4 times 2x. And then last is 4 times negative 1. So again, now we're going to simplify. 1x times 2x. 1 times 2 is 2. Keep the base. Add the exponents. 1 and 1 is 2. Plus negative 1 times x is negative 1x. Plus 4 times 2 is 8x. And 4 times negative 1 is negative 4. Add our like terms. So we have 2x squared. 8 and negative 1 is positive 7x minus 4. First, outer, inner, last. The last one, number 8, is 4a plus 3 times a plus 2. So again, we're going to FOIL, or we're going to distribute 4a times a, 4a times a plus outer 4a times 2, inner plus 3 times a, and last is plus 3 times 2. Now simplify. 4 times 1 is 4. Keep the base a, add your exponents. 1 and 1 is 2. Plus 4 times 2 is 8a. Plus 3 times a is 3a. And 3 times 2 is 6. Again, we look for like terms. Again, like I said, 95% of the time, the two in the middle are going to be like. So you write down your 4a squared, add your like terms, 8 and 3 is 11, and your 6. And that is multiplying polynomials. You're distributing. You're using the distributive property, which we've been doing all year. You're just doing a lot more of it. And now we're combining that with the rules of exponents that we learned in chapter 8. When you multiply, you keep the base, you add the exponents. So now you can work on the worksheet.